live. Whoa! Happy New Year. We are back with Sigil Spotlight. My name, as always, is Mr. Harlan Guthrie. I'm joined by a guest co-host today, Ms. Jo Fallick. Give it up for Jo.
Hello, everybody.
As you know, if you watched our New Year's Eve live stream, Ellen has sadly departed the show. I know, who knows, she might be back. We'll find out when I twist her arm hard enough. But for now, at least today, we have Jo helping me out. How are you doing, Jo?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, good. You better be. Because we have a fantastic guest on today. Somebody who is instrumental in everything that makes Sigil Sigil, as well as a number of other things and people that we have introduced on the show. But before we get to that, a little bit of news. We got 3 pieces of news for people who might be watching and interested in the world as it happens around Sigil. First, for those excited about using Roll20, which is pretty much everybody now.
It's a great system.
Thanks to COVID. Yeah, give a round of applause. No, don't give a round of applause for COVID. We released Savage Rift's Mega Bundle on Roll20. And also, hopefully, by the end of the month, it will be out on Foundry. So, you know what I love?
Tell me all about it.
Fake round of applause, because it just gives me great. I can just pause. I can say something and then be like, yeah, and I get to reference them a lot too.
Truer words.
The fake audience, you know. Yeah, you know, Sue. They like me. That's the first bit of information. Second bit of information.
Oh, me. Yep. The Scion Foundry sheets are now live for Onyx Path.
There you
go. If you're not a Roll20 person, but you are a Foundry person.
Yeah, there's a lot of debate. Look at that. It's intense music between Foundry and Roll. No, there's not. I think every single person I met is like, oh yeah, I see value in this and I see value in that. And most of the people who prefer one over the other have valid reasons. They're pretty fair about it. I want a war because wars are always fun, said everybody. No, but like in this kind of stuff, it's so meaningless that it's nice to see people have
nerd war. You mean
nerd war? Yeah,
nerd warfare.
Nerds don't like fighting. And finally, the Roll20 Scion sheet is in the works, as well as Origin and the Hero Compendia. So if you are excited about those types of things, then sit tight, because they are coming. Hello, look at that. Hello to you.
Hi, Char. Thank you for joining us.
I got a good sound effect for you, guest. That's War Pigs. Why? I don't know.
Nerd War Pigs.
Oh, there we go. Fight me. There we go. This is what I want to hear.
Bring it.
Anyway, without further ado, let us bring on our first and only guest of today. Someone that I am so thankful that I had met. A genuine ray of sunshine on this server, as well as in anything I've had my hands in to do with Sigil. Please welcome to the stage Amy Marshall. Big round of applause.
Hi, Amy.
Whoa.
I don't think I've ever been accused of being a ray of sunshine before.
Hey, it's true. You even have colors on your shirt that, if I was just squinting, it would just look. I don't know what Handmaroon is.
Handmaroon.
What is that?
I think it was like an anniversary. Not emoji. He was what do you call it? It was a large suited creature in Japan, in Yokohama, for the anniversary of the opening of the port at the end of the Tokugawa period, and they turned it into this little. It's like a mascot. That's the word I wanted. It's a seed in a boat, and yeah,
wow,
looks adorable.
That was clean this morning.
Hey, give it up for clean shirts.
Even if it wasn't clean, we would have no way of knowing.
Look at this. Yay, it's Amy. That's
I love
right.
Josh. He's good people.
Yeah. So first off, thank you for coming to the show. Obviously, you have seen many of these shows, yet to be a guest. I'm happy to have you as the first guest for 2022. Oh my gosh. Why don't you tell the people who are watching, who have no idea who you are, what you do, on your own merit, and then also how you're involved with Sigil.
So I am the resident cheerleader, I guess, at Sigil, inside the server and things like that. I'm co-owner of Arcanist Press, so I founded that with my partner. I do all kinds of stuff for Sigil. I think my title is project manager, which is a euphemism, probably. We run a tight shipwreck. I love my people. For Pinnacle Entertainment Group, I am the VTT conversion manager. So I'm in charge of everything for Suede and Pinnacle that goes into Roll20 and Foundry. We have other clients, but those I cannot speak loudly about just yet.
Wait, I have a sound effect for that.
Shadowy figures.
Yeah, just everything. Well, and
also keeper of secrets.
And in your own right, you are a published author as well as a doctor. Tell us a little bit about also your, on your own, who is Amy Marshall?
My dubious past. I'm also a high school dropout, so I'm a GED PhD, which is usually an unusual fact I share. I was a professor for like 10 years. So I started as an academic. I did my undergraduate in Wisconsin in East Asian Studies, thus the Japan thing, and I did my PhD at Brown University. It was a bad fit, so I did that for a while and decided that I wanted to hang out and have nerd wars instead, and nerd not wars.
Nerd wars that are not. I mean, fantastic. Such a diverse and exciting past, as we see a lot of people on here. To be honest, I think something that's always been really awesome and familiar about role-playing games in general is how wide a net they tend to cast. And you dealing with so many people as well as from various backgrounds and types, I mean, you must see that more than anybody.
Yeah, no, it's one of the things that I really love about it, right? Like Sigil, because we have folks who do stuff across the board, right? From writing, editing, game design, to layout, artwork, and coding, and things like that, right? We've got people in the server who are from all over the world and who do all different things and have all different backgrounds. And so, it's really been nice that in this kind of adopted career that I've picked up, that so many different people, like, I love all the quirks and the different talents and personalities, right? Like, other kinds of jobs don't really let people lean into their strengths and just kind of habits like that. And I think we've got a lot of flexibility that's nice, and that we attract people who are also weird like us.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
So cool.
I've said it many times on this show specifically, but knowing somebody plays role-playing games, or at least is associated with them tangentially, it immediately disarms me when approaching them, because I know no matter how intimidating this figure might be, no matter how awesome they may seem in their work and backlog and stuff like that, I know that they still want to be an elf in the woods at times, and that to me immediately puts us in the same pool together. I'm less nervous about that, and I think that's such a fantastic thing about people who love this world of make-believe. I
think everybody has a creative spark too, right? It's just that, like, so much of how we're socialized and what we end up having to do to pay the bills and whatnot kind of strips that from us. And so finding a way to show people how they can do that more regularly, right, is incredibly heartening. And I think it's one of the reasons why role-playing games really kind of exploded, especially during the pandemic, right? Some sort of sense of warmth and creativity in the midst of the chaos is pretty important.
Absolutely. But you came to role-playing games way, way, way before the pandemic, I'm sure.
I am an old woman, yes.
You've been, obviously, you've worked your way up into the upper echelons of these businesses that have to do with role-playing games. So obviously you're a member of the community before that even. And how did you make your way into the world? What was your first role-playing experience, and why did that make you want to continue on with the hobby? I'm always interested.
I never know if I should explain this. Yeah, when you get into it or not, right? Like, so the actual first experience I had with role-playing games was a LARP of Vampire the Masquerade in Minneapolis when I was a teenager. And that was probably not why I'm still doing role-playing games today. I got handcuffed to somebody. It was really strange. Anyway, so the first time I actually played a pen and paper version of a game was Legend of the Five Rings. It's one of John Wick's games, and
yeah, that's awesome.
Super fun. I've always had a kind of proclivity and interest in Asian and vaguely Asian stuff, so that was kind of a natural in. And then I think we played some pen and paper, Vampire the Masquerade, and then we got into what else? There was a couple of other systems that were then, but kind of went on a hiatus. Grad school wrecked me for a number of reasons, and including all hobbies and fun, right? So then
school.
Right, yeah. My masochism knows no bounds. But when I went back to playing, it was 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and got into that. And Aaron Acevedo and Alita Saxon were in one of the games. And so I think I joined their server. I just figured out the other day in like 2018 or something was when we started playing with them. And so after that, we got to be friends and just got more interested in participating in the production side of things. And when I decided that I wanted to walk away from university life, then Aaron was like, hey, I have a whole bunch of spreadsheets that I don't like.
That's
so
awesome.
I think I was brought on originally just to manage art orders and payroll or something. And then just they let me.
Well, I mean, when you have talents as you do, obviously, and I think Aaron, we can all agree, is such a wonderful person to encourage people to be helping out, to be taking on more if they want it. Definitely one of the best people that I've met in the last few years. She's
able to pick talent really easily, and I think that his capacity to bring good people around him is just indicative of what a good person he is.
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout out to Aaron, who may or may not be watching. Probably won't say anything because they're too shy. So obviously the next big thing that came out of this was Arcanist Press, and we know it. Well, I know it from any fame at this point, but maybe could you tell us a little bit about why, first and foremost, Arcanist Press was something that you wanted to do, and then also what kind of came of it for those who might not be aware?
It started as a spring break project to do the Ancestry and Culture stuff. And, Gwen was mechanically aware of ways that the situation could be improved, right? And so I think that project grew out of a frustration. You've had Gwen as a guest, and we've talked at length about, kind of the issues that were present with the notion of race and alignment and things like that. And so that started as a zine quest, right? Like we'd seen the Savage Sign stuff go, and it was like, well, we can take a stab at this. And that project was largely like Gwen's work. I was kind of helping manage some of the back end things. And so it was clear that, hey, maybe we could do more of this and put more energy and effort into this kind of thing. And that was around the same time that I was thinking about leaving the academy and stuff. And so I think that those kind of just dovetailed into, well, let's actually like try and make a business out of this and see what we can do. And then I got sucked into the Sigil side of things, thankfully, and it just kind of fit together nicely.
And for those not 100% aware, Ancestry and Culture, an alternative to Race in 5e, is now, I guess, the 2-time Emmy Award winning, I think it's twice, right? Yeah, for Best Electronic Book and Best Supplement, and was nominated for Product of the Year, which is a huge...
Well, that was a very big compliment. It was nice to see that it resonated with folks and that people...
Deservedly so. It's a wonderful product. It's a wonderful... edition. It elevates so many things about a game that we all love to make it not just more acceptable, but also more fun, frankly. It does.
Well, and flexible, right? There's no reason that we shouldn't be able to have more options. And so we're building a module for it on Foundry as well. So Ancestry and Culture will be available soon on Foundry as well.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So yes, Arcanist, obviously, and now Sigil. But on your personal side of things, obviously you've done a number of things. One that we've mentioned, a published author, magazines, and the making of mass culture in Japan is a book you can purchase today if you wanted to. But you could.
You should not want to.
But
yes.
but I mean, that again, these are all, I don't even want to say feathers in your cap, because that seems demeaning to the amount of effort that you put towards some of these projects that you've done, again, with such a varying degree, which is really complimentary. What exactly, I mean, I guess I want to know what you're perhaps most proud about in looking at these things, especially I'm curious, talking to an author, if that's something that you are, because you sort of, you shy away from it. I don't know if that's just because of the nature of it or what.
I mean, academic writing is fundamentally different from game writing. And so I very much enjoy game writing more than academic writing. I liked the research. I mean, the way that I got, so like I grew up in St. Louis, and my mother would take us to the botanical garden, and there was a huge Japanese garden. And I think that like there was always kind of some sort of aesthetic connection that I had to that. And so like there were small seeds when I was younger that caused an interest in Japan. And then when I ended up, I started as a graphic design major for a hot minute. And so I think also visually, it was always something that I was interested in. And when I ended up in undergrad, I did East Asian studies because it allowed me to do all different kinds of things. So I could take poetry classes, I could take philosophy classes, I could take language classes, and Japanese was at 9 in the morning instead of Chinese, which was at 7. And so that's how I ended up with Japanese. So I got a huge kind of broad training as an undergraduate. And then I lived in Japan in Sapporo for a year and really, really enjoyed it there. And I went to Hokkaido University for an exchange program and kind of knew that that was something that I wanted to do more regularly. And so I applied to graduate school, and I ended up in a history program. And so that kind of steered the type of research I was doing. But again, because I had that kind of visual interest in things, I gravitated a lot towards advertising and visual media and the magazines. And so that was how I ended up kind of pulled towards that. And so looking at the ways in which the imagery and the kind of paratextual stuff, right? So like the way a magazine is put together and where the advertising goes in contrast to where the articles and things go, right? So that kind of whole visual layout thing is super interesting to me. And so picking apart the logic of why the publishers made the magazines the way they did was kind of the driving force of the book and the research that I was doing there when I was still trying to bother with tenure and whatnot. But now I think it was a way in which my creativity and my kind of baseline personality was coming out, shoved into an academic research box, right? Because now I love doing layout and looking at graphic design and all that kind of stuff, but creating it and doing it for games is a huge relief in comparison to what research was like.
I mean, I can't even imagine. And it's interesting how things in our previous work history and, how oftentimes we look back and be like, oh, that's why I enjoyed it. Or that's
my subconscious was screaming at me in this way. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, it's again, just the amount of people that we've talked to on the show now with similar stories, being like, oh, I enjoy doing this aspect, but couldn't understand why
kind of meander, right?
Well, and that's and it's funny because I think in general role-playing games have that sort of open-endedness, that like door opening feeling where you're like, oh, this is an aspect of why I enjoyed this, because there's so much that goes into just playing a game, whether it be reading the rules, for those who enjoy the mechanical
parts of it.
Work on engines as kids and then end up reading books and get really into that. And they're like, oh, this is why I like this, or this is why the engines, the engine building really struck out to me.
Map making or creative writing.
The artists alone,
all of it just informs the hobby.
Absolutely. The amount of people that come, that we talk to, that like Allie, who are like, oh, I loved drawing, and then I got to draw fantasy, and now I love doing.
She's such an excellent cartographer. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Huge.
And Aaron too. I mean, all of the people too. If it does constantly, I'm reminded that role playing games are sort of a funnel in a way, where all of these wide different diverse interests and personalities sort of start seeing their similarities because of the nature of the open-ended gameplay that we all sort of get to experience. And in that, now we've asked you where you start. That's always the question we want to know, what are you enjoying now? What games are you playing now? Do you DM? I know you play, but I don't know sort of the ins and outs of what you do
I will run some games. I don't get to very often. I don't get to play them very often either these days since I'm, but I do get to play some, and I am a terrible pain in the ass player. So,
Oh no, why?
Well, I am trouble
player.
Are you trouble? I'm the person who is like, here is the obvious answer to this problem or situation, and I'm going to find the least straightforward way to approach it just to mess with my fellow players. And yes, exactly. Shar is actually even more of a shit disturber than I am, which is an achievement.
But this is a great thought, because there's a lot of different types of, and I'm not even going to say problem players, because I know you're not a problem player, but there are a lot of different types of players that can be difficult. There are the people who have the book open in front of the DM and being like, no, sorry, I don't get the vibe that you're that kind of player.
No, I mean, I think so. It's funny because I am very interested in the rules, and I like to know the rules and play properly, right?
Yeah.
So that I understand because I mean, right, like one of the things that's interesting to me about game design, right, is that the game is the rules ultimately, right? So that the experience that's being creative or of being creative while inside of the experience that the game designers are trying to create for the players, right, is something that I find interesting among different systems, right? So the experience of playing D&D 5th edition or playing Suede or playing any number of games, right, is supposed to feel different because the games were designed differently, right? And so I think that like seeing how to understand the rules is important to me, but at the same time, the experience at the table is so much more important, right? Like if we have to hand wave a rule because nobody is having fun arguing over a, blast radius or something, like I am way more of the, like fun is the goal. It is a game, right? Like we're supposed to enjoy it. And so finding the balance between how stickler and crunchy we want to be and how we want to promote role play.
So then when you say you're that kind of player, what you really mean is like in the role-playing space.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
it is in character. I mean, I shit deserve plenty in person, but IRL, but yeah.
Yeah. No, but I think that's an important distinction because I think, especially as this hobby becomes more open, which I think is the best thing to happen to it, you do have, well, I want to say traditionally, like the original players, as we all know, from like the 70s, who can be very sticklers about certain things. But we also
originated in wargaming, right? And so that's a particular type of fun.
Which is fine. But I also see a lot of people coming too that tend to be very flippant about it because a lot of their friends are playing it. And those are the people that tend to be on the meta side of the game, causing more issues, the people who are trying to get a laugh at the people at the table or on their phones and stuff like that too. And I want to make sure that on Sigil, we're not advocating for the people to be shit disturbers that are not respecting the dungeon master or the game.
No.
We all respect the game, which is what's great about it.
The social contract of the table is incredibly important, and things like making sure that everyone feels comfortable and that everyone feels like they can speak up and have their space and things like that are ultimately more important than the rules. Yeah.
Exactly. The social and you nailed it with that. And that I think is the thing. And I've said this before because, we all have friends or family that, oh, what do you do? Oh, you play role play? Oh, I'd like to try that one day. Or maybe they're just, they're trying to get their significant other in and they're kind of like, oh, they'd really like. And, a long time ago, I learned to be like, do you want to try? And if they're like, then it's like, well, then let's not. Because if you are somebody who's not committed to the idea of being at the table to learn or to experience or to play or to have fun or whatever, it's never going to be an enjoyable experience.
No motivation the DM can give is going to work, right? Like if there's not buy-in. Yeah. So most tables I'm at, there's a hand wave, right? Of course we're all, yep, let's go. What are we doing?
Exactly. But so you're really the best kind of player is what you're saying, because what you are is somebody who's there to play and in a role-playing sense has fun with it. And that to me is the best kind of player. So I have to disagree with you there. Because to me, nothing is more enjoyable from a player or a DM side than a player who's engaged in it, who's signed that social contract and been like, cool, but also I want to work against the norms. Yeah, I see your pedestal and I see where you want me to take the gem, but also I have this pickaxe and that rock wall looks pretty loose. I think I could get around to the other side here.
Definitely.
That's the best.
I mean, and also just that, like, it's low stakes, right? You know, like no one's going to die if we mess up a battle, you know? And so like being able to use that as a creative space also to make mistakes and see how things break in interesting ways, right? Yeah. So that you're not afraid to drive your character like a stolen car or something, you know, even if it's a long campaign, because you just make a new one.
Was that a you? Someone said that to me.
I say it a lot, but I think I stole it from someone. It's definitely not my idea. You stole it?
I can't. Yeah. For some reason, I feel like when we had Gwen on the show, she was saying, and maybe she quoted you.
I definitely read it on Twitter before.
Okay, so it's
part of the zeitgeist.
Well, but someone said it on the show that I had not heard before, and I don't think they took credit for it. But I love that. You know, they get in it and they drive a character like a stolen car. I mean, not everyone plays that way, obviously, but I think there's absolute validity in playing that way because it is a game.
You can also have your precious darlings, right? There are some of my characters that I would be absolutely crushed if they perished, right? You know, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to jump them off a cliff if I need to.
No. Because a cliff ultimately tells a better story. We've all seen Thelma and Louise.
You want to see how fast that they can go, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like how does falling damage work in this system?
Let's find out. I jumped up.
It's like starting a new video game and you just want to see if PvP damage works. So you
shoot me in the chest to see if there's a friendly fire on.
These are important things to learn about your environment.
Absolutely.
Are you a video gamer as well, or do you mostly just do role-playing games? Yeah.
No, I'll play video games too when I have time. Yeah. I mean, I grew up on, I'm kind of a Nintendo IP person. They were always my favorite. You know, I'll play some stuff on PlayStation too, but I think that like Mario, Kirby, Yoshi, the Little Big Planet series now too. Yeah, I do not like giant frogs. I have been eaten by so many giant frogs in various sundry games. Yeah, seriously. It was there was once it was so bad that some student at one point in one semester was really kind and left me a chocolate frog. I think it was from like a Harry Potter thing or something. I didn't know the reference. But so I show up into my office and there's a chocolate frog on my desk and I'm like, knew that I got eaten this week because it was like the fourth time. And then I show up and there's this frog in my office. It's like, I hate you, universe. Somehow.
Those are some of my favorite mechanics in RPGs, that the ones where it's like, okay, well, what happens when my character gets eaten by something else? Where you kind of have to start playing jazz a little bit with it because maybe like the rules don't fully explain what could possibly
Is there stomach acid?
I mean, some of it is well described, but then sometimes you have to figure out like, well, can I break out of a frog with a club?
Right. You have your Drax the Destroyer moments, you know?
Yes.
Right? How is that going to work?
Yeah, exactly.
So awesome. What happens if I polymorph inside of this creature? And then
that's a good one. Yeah.
So is Arcanist, you mentioned Arcanist Press is sort of working on a module?
For Ancestry and Culture? Sure, yeah. So there's the original book actually has a series of expansions, right? So we did more Ancestry and Cultures and further and custom and those. And so we figured that we wanted to have there be a way for folks to be able to use that stuff in the VTTs like our other stuff. So the idea behind the module is to alter, as the system itself is 100% compatible with 5th edition D&D, right? The module will also allow folks to use in a regular 5e game the ancestries and cultures and the different traits and feats and stuff like that for that. And some of the logic behind that is also built into the S5e system. And so we knew that the conversion for S5e would also need this background work as well. And so in preparation for the S5e Foundry module that's being made as one of the deliverables for the Kickstarter, we started with Ancestry and Culture first, and then we'll expand its kind of feature list when we make the S5e one as well.
Fantastic.
Very cool.
Are there any other... Now, I know you're obviously busy with keeping the ship afloat, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I'm only trying to reiterate what you said.
There is no insult to the mess. We truck along, and mistakes are totally acceptable in our world. I mean, like, this is one of the things that I try to stress to people who join the team, because the previous work that I did at the university was so miserable that walking away from it, I wasn't going to walk into something that was gross like that again. And so creating a space for other people to be in a work environment where they know that they can mess up, and that they know that there's a learning curve, and that there's things that we can do, right? So the way the team functions is amazing, and I'm so proud of them, and so incredibly thankful for Joe and John and the team, right? That I just can't say enough about that. But it is also just kind of a mess some of the time, and that's totally cool. But, you know, we keep the plates spinning, and so that is kind of my overarching task.
Are there any things that you're currently working on the back burner? You know, and I find most people we have on, there's sort of a hot plate in the corner where they have like a little, you know, maybe they're adding mushrooms every once in a while, and they have chicken. And it's just like simmering.
What do you do in your free time?
You know, making
mushrooms.
You know, making a mushroom stew.
The stew's been going for 4.5 years.
But it's funny though. I can name almost every person that's been on the show has been like, oh yeah, I have that. It's my dream project or something. And I'm wondering if there's something that you have simmering that you have always wanted to do. Anything that you're kind of excited about like that.
Yeah, I mean, work stuff. I get to do a lot of stuff I like. I mean, it helps that like I like most of the stuff we do. In terms of like personal projects and stuff like that, I have a pile of hobby things that are probably more likely to fit that category. So yeah, there was a huge period where I was into crochet. I think I stopped being able to wear scarves when we moved to Miami, so I had to find something else to crochet. So I started making amigurumi and little like loveys and stuff and like that. And so there's a couple of patterns that I still have sitting in the background that, like, in my downtime, that's the thing that I go to every once in a while. But
again, work informed by your arts background, right? Is the art that's on your wall something that you made yourself, or is that something that you...
Oh no, it's all origami paper. I can't remember which trip.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was. So I couldn't bring myself to actually fold it into origami. One of them is a set that is like matsuri, or festivals from each prefecture, and the rest of them are just like popular souvenirs or omiyage from each of the different prefectures in Japan. So I rent, we can't paint, so I just put those up.
No, I mean, that's at the end of the day, it's funny how, especially different cultures, you know, like I've literally bought a chocolate bar when we were in Germany that, you know, I'm like, with my German friend, and, you know, he's just kind of like, yeah, here's the garbage. I'm like, no, look at it. Like, I take it for granted, because, you know, Canada is a lesser version of the States in many ways. Just because we sort of have similar products and stuff like that, where they know,
not lesser.
Well, lesser in some ways, maybe greater in some ways, equal in other ways. Regardless, it's just funny because when it comes to packaging, this North American is just like, oh, whatever. But, you know, whether it be origami or something like candy wrappers, certain cultures and certain places have so much care into it that oftentimes I'm like, oh, look at that. Can we frame this? Can we frame this wrapper from this bubble gum that I bought in a convenience store?
I think that's one of the...
Nothing wrong with that. I think that's
no, not at all. Yeah, one of the coolest things about getting to have the privilege to travel is that kind of exposure, right? I think that when travel becomes available again, that's definitely something. It was historically something that I always push my students to do, right? Like being exposed to other cultures and getting to go somewhere else and being outside of your comfort zone, right? Even if you can't physically go anywhere, I think role play is that as well, right? Like it allows you to
100%.
investigate what it might feel like to be someone other than yourself. And that's hugely therapeutic and important for people, I think, that
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And
stretching your mind.
Whether it be just you getting to experience being someone else, it's also a great way to experience other people and other types of people of every,
well, and different aspects of people you already know, right?
Well, exactly. And to me, traveling is equally important to understanding the people of the world, and I think role playing is one of the great ways to get that check mark, so long as you're open to playing online with people from all over the world, because
new experiences.
We've globalized in such a way when it comes to technology, but still you can walk, or you can drive, I should say, a few hours from your house and be in a completely different, place that feels opposite to you in a way. And I think role playing is one of the great ways to break down those barriers, for the same reason I said at the beginning, where no matter how intimidating a figure might be, we all have that commonality.
Yeah.
There's a silliness here where we're happy to be somebody other than ourselves for a few hours. And I love that. I love that familiarity.
I do too. I think the online gaming too allowed, because there's a lot of folks in a variety of communities that have, nervousness about new people or social anxiety and things like that. And there's so many different ways to mitigate that and get folks who previously might not have been comfortable going to their local game shop or going to a convention, right? But to find spaces where it's safe, it feels safe for them to play, right? And that we can welcome those players into tables in a way that allows folks who maybe didn't have the opportunity where they were, or don't have people around them that they can play with, right? That can reach out and find spaces and ways to play that makes it easier. And
Absolutely. I've played with, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, we were unfortunately impacted by the pandemic in March of 2020 by our local gaming convention, Breakout Con, being canceled. And so Harlan and I started an online gaming convention back then, Invictus Con, which we then continued on into 2021, and we're going to be doing it in 2022. And we host tables of players, and people sign up to DM these tables who have never run games before, or they're running games that they themselves wrote.
It's so awesome.
Like one of our community members, Carly, wrote a game about the video game Phasmophobia, which is so cool to see her run. And she did like a Legend of Zelda game the year before, and it's just
awesome.
It's so awesome,
super awesome.
And to your point, Amy, too, people who might not be comfortable being in person don't necessarily even have to be on camera. I've played with people who don't have their camera on, or
voice only, or
voice, and they're just typing even, and it's awesome.
Playback Ghost is definitely even still around.
Well, and it's interesting too, because some of the people that we've gamed with wouldn't do that, and now have come out of their shell because of communities like ours and like many others, because they feel comfortable. And now, I mean, Carly, when we first met, not to make a scene of Carly.
Pick on Carly.
Yeah.
We love you wherever you are.
When we first met her, she was so shy. It was at a convention that she had come to see us for, because she had seen us online, and barely introduced herself, to the point where it was like one of her first time playing an RPG, and then played in many games, and now runs games.
Right, and then runs them. That's amazing.
More and more confident. It's amazing. I'm so excited to be in a community in general, the role-playing community, where so many people, where more doesn't detract in any way.
No, it's definitely, there's enough space, right? It's not a zero-sum game. There's everybody can have their fun how they want to have it, right?
Exactly.
And so it's the power that just, let me see the cool thing you made, and let me appreciate the neat stuff that you're doing is profound. And so just having that energy around me all the time with the team and the different publishers and projects that we're working on. I mean, I couldn't ask for something better than that, you know?
What a cool career you've built for yourself.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Applause for you.
I'm the one that should be applauding, because it's definitely me that benefits from it, you know. So it's difficult, you know. I mean, a lot of people try to get into it, and so I also recognize that, you know, like it's a thing to be grateful for, and that Absolutely. You know, I'm willing to work for it to keep it up, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And you
deserve it.
Hard, very hard. Now, before we end, I always like to know, and this is sort of a more general question, so answer any way you want, but what are you excited about? Like, is there a movie, a book, a TV show, a game? Like, what is pumping you up right now in your personal life?
Goodness, lots of stuff. I mean, I think that the thing that I'm most excited to see is the how many different projects I can have in the air at one time.
Oh,
there's so much stuff I have to do. And so like one of my goals for this year is to see exactly how much I can reasonably expand my purview. I have delusions of grandeur sometime, right? I'll slowly take over this little corner of the world as much as people are going to let me. So that's probably, and finding new people to join the team, right? Like all of my people are good people, and I'm so happy to have all of them, but I always want to just continue collecting the cool kids, right?
Yeah.
So
too much Pokemon you've played. No, there's only one of you, and I want you. No, that's
this ball from
right.
No, that's great.
I promise it's not a prison. It's a garden. We all hang out. It's totally okay.
No, that's fantastic, and I love to know what's getting people excited, and it's so different for everybody, you know. And whether it be the next episode of Boba Fett or meeting more people, you know, it can be
that one is on the list too. But...
I haven't watched it yet. I've heard good things. I'm one of the people who I want to make sure the series is like probably done a season before I get into it.
So yeah, it used to be that I had a rule that I would not start a television series until it was totally done. And then I can't remember what it was specifically that broke that. And then having to wait a week again, it's like I went through that as a child. I remember commercial television and having to wait, and it, you know, like my children just do not understand that at all. And so like having to wait a week for the next episode is a real it's a growth edge for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Including myself, probably.
I see people online who are like, oh, I'm looking for a new podcast series to listen to. I love podcasts. It has to be done though.
Yeah.
It has to be
like, I don't want to start
releasing.
A new show. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to wait, which I get. You know, our son has no you know, like I worked at Blockbuster. I remember being like, oh, if we want to watch the next Lord of the Rings, we got to go out and pick it up, you know, or something like that, you know, get the VHS, make sure we rewind it. Yeah. And now it's just like, well, click
on demand entertainment.
But yeah, we changed on that too, honestly, with the bingeable, because spoilers started messing me up.
Yeah, I'm a hermit and a grumpy person anyway, so I kind of try and hide from things in general, and socials are not my forte.
Fair. For us, it is hard. A lot of people would be like, "Have you seen the new episode?"
They do, yeah. Even in Discord and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? So it's Aaron spoiling everything. Aaron. Anyway, thank you, Amy, so much sincerely for joining us today. This has been an absolute blast. And to everybody,
we appreciate all the work that you do to keep stuff in front of people too.
Well, we try. But thank you for everybody who watched and commented. Tons of great comments here coming in. Wonderful stuff. There you go. See, Aaron. That is it from us. We're going to be back in 2 weeks with another new guest. This is Sigil Spotlight. Make sure you like the video and have yourselves a wonderful, I think it's a long weekend in the States, isn't it?
Yeah, Monday is a holiday. Mm-hmm.
For what?
Is it Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I think? I don't. Time has no meaning for me anymore.
Yeah, I mean, us neither, but because it's Canada, someone mentioned it. They're like, oh, it's a long weekend here. And I was like, in January? We don't. Anyway.
Reasons. We don't ask.
Reasons. Have a great long weekend. Hopefully it's a good reason. It sounds like a good reason if it's Martin Luther King Jr. So do that. And that's it from us. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.
Bye.